So it's obvious if you've been paying attention to the job market that layoffs are on a definitive uptick, and we are seeing more companies announcing big reductions in force. And of course, the government efficiency initiatives are playing a big role in that. In fact, I think the Pentagon just announced that they're going to be reducing their civilian workforce by something like 30 or 40,000 people. But that's not the entire picture. A lot of civilian jobs are also being cut. But the bigger issue is that a lot of people are being caught off guard. And I don't know if this is some people's first rodeo, but over the last 5 years, those of us who are grizzled veterans in the job market, and in particular have been subject to some layoffs, have probably started to be able to see some of these signs. And I know that when you finally get back to work after a long layoff, it's a sigh of relief, but you have to be really careful not to allow your defenses to go down and to slip into apathy, because as some of these people have found out, corporate loyalty is completely dead, and we still have to act very, let's say, aggressively in order to stay in front of what is essentially a new job market. So let's hear some of the stories of people who are getting laid off today and a little bit of commentary on them. But before we get into that, if you're interested in more career-related content just like this directly from a corporate recruiter, make sure you hit the subscribe button. You may also want to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future content. And if you're somebody that's looking to reclaim control in your career and your next job search, I highly encourage you to check out my brand new free webinar. I will leave a link in the comments below. So let's head over and check out some of the personal stories that people are sharing about their layoffs, and we'll add a little bit of color commentary to it.
Well, second time in a year, almost a year to the day, I got laid off again, twice in a year. And, what the what is anyone supposed to do? And they said, because of the economy is crap right now. So, we're going to lay off a whole bunch of people again. And I already was struggling so hard, actually low-key, to even keep the current roof over my head. And now I have no idea how I'm even going to get through the next few hours. I just don't understand. But yeah, the economy is shit. America is shit right now. I feel like there's a really big plan for them to, tank this so that we have to rely on other things, other people. And I'm quite frankly tired of it. I'm tired of my livelihood being in other people's hands. And I have no idea how to fix that, but I'm going to, because this is just wild, and I'm angry more than I am hurt or sad. I am scared. I have no idea where any of my bills are gonna come from, the money. I'm more angry than anything because I just cannot even believe I used to be able to get a job like the week later if I got laid off.
All right, so her audio seemed to cut out, so let's just react from what she said so far. So a few things. She's been laid off twice in the last year, and unfortunately, that's a very common thing. I think a lot of people have the same story. What that tells me is that employers are very short-sighted. They can forecast for a certain headcount, and then a month later decide, they've hired the person, they decide, whoops, we actually don't need that anymore, it's not part of our long-term strategic plan. The problem is, they never hold themselves accountable. It's always the employee that gets held accountable. So these executives who are making these decisions can go and basically destroy a company, destroy livelihoods, and they can just walk away like this. And it's the employee who has to bear the brunt of it. I don't know, in her case, if she got laid off previously due to the economy, which has been, let's face it, we've had an economy issue for the last 4+ years. But if she's gotten laid off due to the economy, she was probably thrilled to get back to work. And as a result, we have a tendency to kind of breathe a sigh of relief. Hey, we're finally back in the workplace. And then you kind of slip back into apathy. You kind of assume that that was just a one-time thing and it can't happen again. And unfortunately, she has learned the hard way, and a lot of people learn the hard way, that we have to be much more proactive in our careers. Employers have proven that they are not in it for the long haul, that they are very short-sighted. It used to be they would look at long-term cycles and they would plan their workforce. They would plan their project they would get involved with. and they would weather the storm. But now there's no sense of loyalty at all with the corporations toward the employee. But as soon as that almighty stock price potentially gets disrupted, they make wholesale changes because there's really no reason for them not to. There's no consequence. There's 1,000 people waiting for every job. And so they can do this. They know that they can hire back the next person off the street, potentially even cheaper, and they can go about their business like nothing ever happened and just repeat the cycle. And so the workplace as we know it, and I talked about this in I think the last couple of videos, the workplace as we know it is just completely gone. We have to be completely independent free agents. We have to start acting like the CEO of our career, because this is the result. We have people who are unprepared for what's next. They can't ever get ahead. The moment that you think you're starting to get your feet back under you, you get it yanked out from underneath you again. And with the economy going the way it is, where everything is much more expensive, trying to buy cars, trying to afford rent, trying to buy houses, everything is more expensive. And on top of it, wages have been going down, and people just can't even get ahead. You're never going to even forget vesting for a 401k. You're never going to see that again. And in this case, she's never going to be able to get her feet underneath her. So she has to start thinking more strategically in her career. And this isn't a criticism of her. It's just an observation for how do we operate going forward. We have to change our approach, because what has happened in the past and how we're operating today is no longer working and will no longer suit us. So those of us who adapt will be the ones that thrive in the new economy. Those of us who don't adapt and continue doing the same things, we're just going to experience continued frustration. But I do think it's okay to be angry. I think it's reasonable to be upset at employers and pissed off about what they're doing, because they've changed the dynamic, and they conveniently blame the employee. And so in her case, I do feel for her. And obviously she's expressing a lot of emotion here, which I'm probably going to have to bleep out and post edit, but I get it. I felt this way too. I think every one of us has felt this way in the workforce, but now it's like, okay, what do you do going forward? Do you continue to do the same things that you've always done, or do you try to do something different? And in her case, like how do you pay bills? That's a big concern. And every time I suggest this, I get people who throw darts at me for it. Multiple streams of income. Multiple ways to pay your bills. Doesn't have to be another job. Doesn't have to be working an Uber or something like that. There are lots and lots of different ways to earn an income or to start de-risking yourself, but that's what you have to be doing. If you're not doing that, you're putting yourself at extreme risk. So let's finish up the rest of her thought, and then we'll move on to the next one.
I have no idea what's going to happen, and I was really hoping at one point I would make money on TikTok, and I still only have 1,500 followers or whatever.
Now, to her point on TikTok is a reasonable way to make some side income. And it used to be much easier, but now it's getting more and more competitive because everybody's doing it. And so it's getting harder to stand out. You have one viral video that gets you a bunch of followers, but if you can't keep them around for the long period of time, it's going to be hard to maintain that. And I know a lot of people get burned out from the constant grind. So it's not people kind of, they look down at content creation. It's a very difficult way to make a living, but it is a viable way. You can do it from your home. So, I hope she keeps with making content, but you need to find your lane and your niche.
So, if you could just blow this up and let's get 10,000 followers plus whatever. Because
if you're interested in following her, I'll give her a shout out. It's Lindsay H. Reed, Lindsay with an A, Lindsay. So Lindsay H. Reed is her TikTok handle. So, you can give her a follow. All right. So next up, we have a person who's actually being laid off in real time. We've probably are all familiar with this, but there's a couple of call outs that I want to make on this video.
So I think I'm being laid off from my job today. If you couldn't tell by my appearance, I have been crying all morning. I haven't even had my meeting yet. But I got a calendar meeting today from someone I've never spoken to at the company, and a bunch of other people did too. So I am recording this because I feel like a lot of people can probably find comfort in knowing they're not alone. So we will see. Maybe it'll be something positive. Maybe I'm not getting laid off.
She's 100% getting laid off. I hate to admit that, but it's 100%er whenever somebody from human resources or you get a mystery invite that you have to show up to some meeting that wasn't on your calendar, your boss doesn't even know about it, and other people are also getting invited to their own separate meetings. It's a 100%er that you are going to be somebody subjected to a layoff.
Off, but I am shaking.
That does impact your position. Today is going to be your last day.
I've loved my time here and I'm very thankful for it, so I appreciate it.
Now, she's obviously very emotional, and I think we can all relate to that, but what strikes me about this video is there's the tone of the person who's on the other end. It's very robotic, it's very scripted, there's no emotion there on their part. It's a very, very much a transactional relationship. But at the end of the day, we are all just lines on a spreadsheet, and if your role falls into a certain bucket, whether you are in a certain job type, a certain division, certain title, certain level, certain compensation range, or a certain performance level, if it's no longer part of the employer's plans, they cut you, and it's no skin off their back, but it destroys the lives of the people left behind. She's also feeling this need to say how appreciative she is of everything, and for me, it's like, yeah, I think maybe at some level you're so in shock that you're just reacting to it. But for me, I'm not real appreciative of the fact that you just laid me off. And the fact is that there's probably not going to be a recall there. So it's not to say that you should kick over the planter and tell them to screw off and all that stuff. That's probably not the right way to do it. But I don't necessarily know if I feel thankful. But I'm assuming she's just saying that because of a reaction.
I did not think that would be my last day. My laptop's not even working anymore for me to save things
Yeah, so literally at the same time when you're being laid off, the IT department is shutting down all of your access. They're getting rid of your email address and all that stuff. They're getting rid of your ability to swipe in and out of buildings. All of your security protocols are shut down. You are basically somebody that they used to know the minute they have had this conversation with you. And so that's the relationship. That's the dynamic. And we always have to be proactive thinking. You walk in on a Monday morning thinking everything is great. You're just going to get back to work doing what you left off on Friday. And you get this email completely out of the blue. There are so many instances of this. All right.
Can someone who was recently laid off or laid off in general just tell me what the warning signs are? Because today my boss was fired.
Yeah, happy to do that. If your boss is fired, there's a good chance that you're going to be fired. If a new boss comes in, a boss's boss, or the entire senior leadership gets replaced and a new senior leader comes in, it's like the director plus probably the C-suite of your career, of your vertical. If you're in marketing, if the chief marketing officer gets replaced, there's a decent likelihood that your role could be affected by it.
They took away, it's like a fully remote job. They took away our access to social spaces.
That's the other thing. When we're working fully remote in today's economy, remote jobs are certainly under a lot of pressure to return to the office. That's going to be another huge flag. If I'm somebody that is remote, I am making sure that I am being as visible as I possibly can, making sure that my performance is as high as I possibly can, and getting myself involved in very visible projects with the key leaders in that organization. Because when you're out of sight, you're out of mind. And as much as I love remote work, and I've worked remote for a majority of the last half of my career, people who are remote are getting laid off in more frequency, and that's just the fact of the matter. And they're finding it much more difficult to get reemployed because most of these employers are forcing people back into the office, or at very minimum, a hybrid work situation. So if you're fully remote, that's another big red flag, especially when things aren't going well with the company.
Okay, weird. And then fired people who were misusing the social space policy by commenting in social spaces, not during the half-hour lunch that we get. Took away our right to YouTube. Literally just logged in today and YouTube wasn't working. And then when they realized we need YouTube to do our job, because sometimes we have to analyze videos, they gave it back to us. They took away our department meetings. We're not allowed to have meetings as a department now.
Yeah, and when they start having secretive meetings behind the scenes, all of a sudden communication gets locked down, and your senior leaders, your boss's boss, is suddenly taking a much more of an interest in what's going on in your department. That's a big red flag as well. It means that they're looking at who is truly needed, what work is truly needed, and how they're going to restructure things in the department, which means layoffs.
With the department head, I don't understand where that one came from, but okay. because that's like work. They just basically want us to like work, have no distractions. Like I feel like the writing's on the wall. They've already laid off a decent amount of people, but like they were known for doing that. Like we were an overinflated project. But my boss getting fired today,
Yeah, overinflated project. You know, if the role that you're working on does not directly add to the bottom line of the business or the strategic direction of the business, in other words, you're not in a revenue generating role, like think recruiters, then you're much more likely to get laid off, especially when things in the company itself could be doing fine, but there's an economic indicator. They're looking out and saying, 6 months from now, things are going to look rocky. We better make steps now. And people who are not in income or revenue generating roles or supporting those roles directly are at great risk. So in her case, and she's seeing that. Another thing to point out is if there are other rounds of layoffs in the organization, I don't know how anybody, even if the layoffs happened 2 or 3 years ago, I don't know how anybody can feel totally comfortable working there. If I took a job where I knew that they laid off people, I would be absolutely updating my resume, keep my resume very up to date. And while I'm working at that company, I am absolutely building up whatever skills I need and working on my networks, because they've already proven it's like what the behavior-based interviewing is. Past performance is the best indicator of future performance, and their past behavior is the best indicator of their future behavior. And especially when you got managers sniffing around, bosses sniffing around. It's also worth pointing out, your boss, your direct boss, is likely not going to be directly involved in any kind of layoff decisions with you specifically. In fact, they're often right with you in the trenches in regard to that. So bosses and above are the ones that you need to worry about.
I don't know what to do other than apply for a ton of jobs, but I'm just like convinced. Is that how it works? Like, do they fire top down or do they fire bottom up?
It depends. I mean, sometimes they'll look at the leadership. I know that there's been a war on the middle manager. Middle managers are across the board being eliminated in droves. I know that in the tech space, they've been basically decimated. It's not a great time to be a middle manager. And the problem is, if you're trying to move up a career path to get into the upper tiers of leadership, there's going to be a real problem with there's not going to be any bench strength. There's not going to be anybody to promote because nobody has the experience leading people. So in a lot of cases, they'll be laying off managers, but then it could be directly to the employee. It just depends on the company. But the middle manager is just as at risk as you are if you're an individual contributor. Next up, we have a person who just lost their job as well.
I just got let go from my job as part of organizational shifts and return to office. As you guys know, I have been a remote employee for the past 5 years, really since the beginning of the pandemic. And I'm crying not because I'm sad that I got let go. Obviously, the instability of losing an income always sucks. What sucks most about being let go is somebody taking control out of your hands. I always preach internally and here at home that we have got to be the people in the driving seat of our futures, of our careers. And when a company takes that control out of your hands, it sucks, because all of a sudden the plan that you had, the roadmap that you were on board for, is gone. Now you've got to start over. And this is why you've always got to have a plan B, a plan C, and most importantly, an emergency fund. I am incredibly upset and frustrated. There have been several shifts in the company in this last couple of months that I just knew the writing was on the wall and I knew my time was coming. But the fact that we have an emergency fund, because ultimately that is what matters at the end of the day, is that we have money to pay our mortgage, to pay for our daycare. We have that as a fallback, and I can take time, maybe a week, to just collect my thoughts and put together a strategy for job hunting. Always be prepared for the unexpected, because ultimately companies will always put themselves first. And as much as you want to believe that you're part of the family, you like the people you work with, it's a business transaction. It's a business contract, and you've got to handle it as such. But please know that you are more than your job. You are more than what you do. Have a plan, have an emergency fund. Do not spend more than you need to. Live below your means. We are in strange times. That isn't beside me losing the job, just general messaging. Protect yourselves, treat yourself as a business, and always be looking for better opportunities, because companies would do the same, and they are.
I wonder, she's speaking my love language, by the way. I wonder if she watches my channel, because this is everything that I preach about. She's got it exactly right. She's grounded. She knows exactly the dynamic between the employee and the employer, how you should treat your career, act like the CEO of it, become more in control, develop the power that you need by making sure that you do all the things necessary, getting the skills, creating those emergency funds, making sure that you're not completely reliant on the employer in case something like this happens, and then expecting the unexpected. To her point, we are in very weird economic times. I don't know what's going to happen, and there's a lot of uncertainty. The only thing that's certain is your career is going to continue to be rocky. And so, again, you can either be in the let's just use the term, the victim mentality, where you're always placing yourself at high risk and not doing anything meaningful to try to get out of that loop, that vicious loop, or you can shift your mindset and become the CEO of your career. And that's kind of like the whole point of this channel and why I talk about what I talk about. It's career empowerment and getting out of this cycle, because this is the new norm. So kudos to her. She really gets it. I really like her channel. I'm going to give her a shout out. This is Cherished Chaos is her handle if you want to follow her on TikTok.
Guess who's unemployed? Guess what happened? Because I got laid off about an hour ago. What do we do when we get laid off, guys? Because I've never not had a job. I don't know. I don't know. Do know is that I have a now 5-month-old. I've never not had a job. My brain is going crazy. What am I supposed to do? I don't know. What do we do? What do we do? Do we take a breather? Do we take a break? Do we enjoy?
So what do? You absolutely take some time, a few days, a week, 2 weeks, whatever you need, in order to go through the stages of grief, to get mad, to get upset, to be in denial for a minute, go through all the emotions that you need to feel, and then you need to get to work. If you're somebody that hasn't set up a strong background that you can weather the storm, you've got to start doing whatever it takes. If it means that you've got to go down to the local, Amazon warehouse or the local Home Depot and get a part-time job, you got to do what you got to do. But hopefully going forward, if you're somebody that does have a job today, you're starting to assess what risk you likely have and putting together some action plans. So the moral story here is, if you are somebody that is gainfully employed, don't rest on your laurels. Companies are still actively looking for ways to cut costs, and let's face it, they consider us to be commodities, and we have to start acting with more independent authority in our career. So if your legs are tired of running around this vicious corporate hamster wheel, never feeling like you're getting ahead, it's time to start reclaiming control in your career. And again, check out the free webinar in the comments below. I give you some ideas on how to do that. As always, appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next one.